Creative project management is not the same as IT project management. I say it again, creative project management is not the same as IT project management. I'm a project manager within the creative space, right? And that looks like working within agencies, so creative agencies. It might look like working with brands, anything that is creative. So usually I sit within a marketing team within an agency, right, or a actual brand. So the projects that I work on usually look like a social media campaign, right? And the project might be a video animation that would be housed on TikTok or Instagram. It might be a illustration. If you're looking at the Daily Mail online news site, for example, you might see an ad surrounding a article, right? That type of project would be part of like a wider campaign where it might involve an article, it might involve a interscroller on the mobile phone, for example, right? They're the kind of projects that I work on. It's all creative. I'm dealing with a lot of creative teams, a lot of creative directors, video animators, motion graphics, designers. Okay, they're the typical types of people and teams that I work with. Very different to that of an IT project manager. So if you are looking to get into project management and you yet haven't figured out the type of niche you want to get into, I'm here today just to talk a bit about some of the differences between an IT project manager and a creative project manager. Firstly, there isn't a lot of heavy documentations in creative project management. Now, that's not to say that we don't have structured documents. We have a lot of them, right? But it's not like IT where you'd have a project charter. I get so many of you guys asking, do you have project charters or what can you explain a project charter? Because I talk a lot about briefs. A lot of the time, if you're a project manager within an organization, as in a creative project manager, the first thing that you're going to receive from a client, an existing client, is a project brief, okay? And that outlines exactly what the requirements are for that particular project, okay? So there isn't like formal documentations like a charter. So yes, we need documentations, but they're not formal. Like as if you're working within a Prince 2 type of environment, right? It doesn't look like that in a creative space. We are much more reactive. So if a client reacts, i.e. if they send changes, say the project manager has sent over some creative work to get the client's feedback. If the client feeds back and it's unclear, the project manager is reacting straight away. They are sharing the feedback with the creative team. They are gathering their thoughts. They are working out, okay, is this clear for the team? If it's not clear for the team, let's get a meeting together and let's work it out together. And it's also a case of, okay, let me as a project manager get all of the questions that the team have and let's fire it back to the client. This is the typical pacing of that environment of the creative space. It is fast paced, it is reactive all of the time, okay? And this is when you're working on multiple projects. You do have to have quite a confidence about you, a boldness about you, because you are liaising with multiple people and sometimes it's cross-functional teams. So as the project manager, you might be liaising with the product team, you might be liaising with, like I mentioned, all the creative teams, the heads of those departments. So it's very reactive and it is very fast-paced. And also some of the IT roles that I've seen require the Prince 2 certification. Now, the Prince 2 is definitely not required for the creative space. It's a bit more rigid and heavily relies upon documentations. If there's a change request, for example, from the client, you're having to put together a change request form. And that is not how we roll in the creative space. If there's a change, you're having to jump onto that change. Okay, yes, obviously, if the client is going over the number of changes that has been confirmed, say, for example, there's only meant to be 2 rounds of amend and a client's got more and more feedback, then yes, obviously you have to flag that, look at the cost, for example, that's normal. But it's not as if you have to put together like an official change request form, okay? So yes, it's fast paced. Yes, you're reactive. And although there is structure, there is still structure because you still have to have particular workflows. The project manager still has to make the workflows easier for the teams, right? But it is not as rigid as other environments, and it does require you to react to change imminently in a timely manner. So if you are considering creative project management, from my perspective, I love it. I love watching a creative team come together. I love seeing the brainstorms and the project manager. And because as a project manager in the creative space, you can shift over to being a producer as well, which is very similar to project management. A lot of my freelance roles are basically producer roles where I'm having to have a bit more involvement in the creative process and the creative outlook on the projects. And these are still like social media posts for brands like Candy Crush, for example. And the producer is involved in brainstorming, contributing ideas. Okay, so if you're someone who is a creative, you're naturally quite creative, you have a eye for detail in that sense, then maybe look into becoming a project manager within the creative space. Okay, hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, and drop me a question below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.